Good morning, evening, afternoon, everyone. I'm Alberto from the Unstoppable Creator, and today I'm interviewing live Derek Hughes from England. And I knew Derek on Medium, and we met in a couple different situations online, a couple different communities, and I invited him to talk about mainly his productivity because he's still working a regular job, but he also built a huge following and an interesting business online. And he published a lot, an unbelievable amount of content. So I want to learn how he managed to do it. And so, first of all, thank you, Derek, for being with us today. And please introduce yourself.
Yeah, brilliant to see you again, Alberto. I live in Manchester, the UK. I have a normal job working for a church. So I do that 4 days a week. But about just over 2 years ago, I started writing online and initially on Medium, and had nobody reading me for quite a while. And so then I decided to try and work this online thing out, really, and work out how do you get an audience, how do you help people, because those some of those early days when like you got a comment and somebody liked what you wrote and you thought, actually I can really like say something that's helpful to people, that initial buzz was quite energizing, really. So so kind of working and writing at the same time, that meant that I needed to think through how you get the most out of your hours and be productive, and that's been quite a journey, really, as well, I'll be honest.
Yeah. Um, I want to start from painting the picture. How does a regular day look like for you now? Because you have your job, you you publish content, and you publish still a lot of content. You create products. So I think that having a regular job forces you to have a regular practice, some habits around your content. And so tell us, how do you use your time right now?
Yeah. So mainly, so my job is not a 9 till 5. So I work on a Sunday. Sometimes I work evenings. And so really my main heavy writing stuff happens first thing on a morning. I tend to do a couple of deep work sessions nearly every morning. Sometimes if I've got to go into my normal job, I might only do one session. But ideally I try and get 2 sessions in, probably 5-6 days a week. I will do that, and that's like the backbone, really. And then the other stuff around like coaching and products and answering emails, that kind of happens in the other bits of time, really. But I know that like my foundation is that deep work writing, so that happens. So get up and I'll do a session, go for a walk, come back, do my second session, and if I can get both of that done, then that's set my writing business up well for the day and the week.
Yeah. And how much do you publish every week?
So I try and write a Medium article every day. That tends to be my goal.
Still, okay.
So probably I'll do that most days, probably, yeah. So I'll probably get maybe 6 a week out, and then everything else is some version of that repurposed.
Okay.
So I'm doing 3 newsletters a week. I'm creating workshops, products, etc. But nearly all of that is downstream of my Medium content. Probably adapted and changed, etc. But I've got like 515 articles maybe on Medium. So like anything that I do a monthly live workshop that I teach. But really, anything I'm going to teach, if I've written 500,000 words, I've probably said something about it already, So anything new tends to go into Medium and create something new there, because everything else kind of comes downstream of that, really.
This is very interesting. Extremely interesting, because you now, how many followers do you have on Medium now?
21,000.
Yeah, it's it's a large enough audience to get interesting feedback and valuable feedback to decide what to do, right? Okay, yeah. And so I'd really love to know everything about your process, but uh, let's start from the last thing you touched. Uh, I think that this kind of repurposing you do, and maybe it's expanding, I guess, in some cases. Uh, it, I think, yeah, from what I see from the outside, I see that you publish a lot of articles, and this is an incredible starting point. And but uh, maybe the repurposing part is the is harder maybe for some for many writers, especially beginner writers, and because maybe sometimes you don't want to repeat yourself, or you can't imagine how you can turn an article in something different, but that doesn't require starting from scratch. So how do you uh, um, guide us through, for example, an example of an article you, after you published it on Medium, what makes you decide, okay, I will reuse this article and I will reuse it in this way, and I will transform it this way. So guide us through the process.
Yeah, so I mean, if I think about Medium to Substack,
Yeah.
as an example to talk
Okay.
through, I mean, one Medium article can go in lots of different places, but if I talk about Substack, so I started on Substack maybe 7 months ago, and quite a few writers were telling me to come, and it was like, I don't have capacity to come on Substack. I can't like do more
Of
stuff.
course.
You know what I mean? But then I started to think about repurposing and think, well, actually, I've written loads of stuff. And so essentially what happens on Substack is I look at my Medium stuff from 3 months ago. So Substack doesn't get this month's Medium, it gets 3 months ago Medium. And so 3 months ago, I might have written 30 articles on Medium, but actually
Yeah.
Medium has told me which ones are any good. So really what happened is so my paid subscribers get 4 articles a month off me. So my paid subscribers get my best 4 articles from that Medium month, typically. Yeah, so I look at which ones performed, etc. So I think they're the best, so they're going to go to my paid subs, and then the next best 4 will go to my free subs, which go on a Monday. I mean, that's usually. I mean, occasionally I'll write on Medium about Medium, and if that's done really well, I probably won't repurpose that. I'll look at something else, and if I know what Substack, as I learn more about what my Substack audience likes, I may tweak it myself because I look and think, actually, that's the sort of thing they like. But my starting point is I'd look at the Medium stats as my guide of actually what did well here, what is of most interest to people. And that's how I would use that as my kind of guide, as it were. But adding my own knowledge of Substack to tweak that decision a little bit. And then I would just read through the article, and because I wrote it, yeah, I mean, 3 months ago is not too bad. If I'm repurposing from 9 months ago, my thinking might have changed, or my
Okay.
writing might have improved. I might not believe some of the things, so I'll normally read through it and just decide whether I want to tweak it or what I'm learning about what works now. And I'll just make a few tweaks as I kind of read through it. Probably for Substack, it's about the same length. When I send out my kit newsletter, which goes out, that typically tends to be a shorter Medium article because I tend to add other things into my kit newsletter. So rather than 1,000 words, I'll maybe cut it down to 600 words because I've got a few other bits and pieces. So if it's 5 points, that might go down to 3 points and stuff like that. So
Okay, so first of all, thank you to everyone who's joined, and thank you for the kind words, Ashley and Peter in the chat. Please keep them going. If you have any question for Derek, just put it in the chat, and we'll try to answer everything. So how long? So basically, you take the best articles, and never just copy paste them, but always try to read them and maybe, if necessary, update them based on something that could have changed or based on the plat on Substack, on what works on Substack, basically.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'll read it, and I mean, most writers were quite critical of ourselves, aren't we? So sometimes I'll read it and I'll be like, oh, that's not bad, that is it? You know what I mean? And it might just get repurposed. Other times I might read it and I'll be like, oh my word, what was I thinking there? You know, in terms of that paragraph or those sentences or something. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
I mean, it does depend a little bit on my time availability. You know, if I'm having a difficult week or things are a bit crazy, you know, that may get shortcut that process. You know, and because if I've got a newsletter, it goes out every Monday. You know, it goes out every Wednesday on Kit, it goes out on every Friday, so it has to go out whatever's ready. But yeah, that's generally what I try to do. And so I guess the reason I don't feel bad and guilty about repurposing is because,
Yeah.
so for my Substack readers, essentially the content has been filtered, you know, so it's get published on Medium. They're kind of having a look if it's any good or not. And so the Substack, you know, don't tell the Medium people this, right? But Substack's getting the best of what's already been tested. You know? And so, like,
Okay.
you're doing your audience, you're not cheating your audience by just whacking something else out. You're looking and you're reflectively thinking which is the best from that, and do I need to make any changes, and then you send it out. So hopefully you're kind of getting better as a writer, and you're using repurposing to serve your audience better.
But in any case, if someone is subscribed to Medium and subscribed to your Substack, and for some impossible reason reads everything you put on Medium, and then sees Substack as just the copy and doesn't see the value, and he can just unsubscribe. So I don't think we have to. If our intentions are good, I don't think we have to worry. If we don't see new subscribers, or if we see paid subscribers churning fast, then there's a problem. But just try it and see what works. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we probably know this, you know, but actually, readers pay less attention to us than we think. Yeah,
Absolutely.
you know, so like you could even republish the same thing. I mean, you could send a newsletter the same thing 2 weeks in a row, and like half the people are reading it didn't look last week.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like the fact that I do have same readers across lots of different platforms, you know, they're all dipping in out of different things and skim reading and all that sort of stuff. And if they see something, they're like, I mean, we all repeat our ideas anyway, you know what I mean? Consistency is still important for a writer. You know, there's not going to come to the day when I'm going to stop teaching consistency. You know, you still need to serve your readers. Headlines still need to hook. You know, there's some fundamental things we still need to teach. So you are going to repeat some stuff. And so, yeah, I don't think it's as big. The only writers who think it's a problem repurposing are those arrogant enough to imagine that everyone's paying close attention to what you write. And
in any case, you aren't selling subscriptions for $1,000. I mean, people are not. If you are not selling a high ticket product and just recycling what you published on a $5 per month platform. Peter was asking an interesting question. Do you change your titles from the titles of your Medium articles when you publish them on Substack?
So at the moment, I don't. I mean, because I'm only doing one a week, and I've only been here for whatever 30 weeks, 25 weeks. You know, I've only got, to my free subscribers, I've only got like 25 articles to test from. But what I am noticing, and I need to give more attention to this, is the titles that do well on Medium don't always do as well on Substack.
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah.
So I do need to, at some point, actually look at my analytics. I mean, sometimes they do, you know, but not always. So I haven't paid enough attention to work out what exactly, because on Substack you've got two audiences, haven't you? You've got your email list who get it, but then it also turns into this kind of article that gets shared on notes and all sorts of stuff. So in that case, your title needs to work hard to grab attention, doesn't it? Whereas for your email list, it probably doesn't need to work as hard. So it does have dual purpose. for that.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen long titles on Substack, but also very short and cryptic titles that I think worked just because the readers already knew the writer, so they would have they knew what the writer was talking about even with just a couple of words in the title. And I was wondering just I think yesterday if it could be a good idea to publish the newsletter with a shorter title, so people so the subject so people read the entire subject, and it doesn't get cut, and maybe change the title later when people share it on the platform, because some articles have a longer life on Substack. But
Yeah.
yeah, it is just an idea. I never tried it.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, my data on titles on Substack's probably too small, really. With only 25,
Okay.
33 articles, you got to be careful about making any sort of
Yeah,
conclusion
yeah.
from that, can't you? But yeah.
And still talking about repurposing, how do you were talking about workshops before and products.
Mhm.
Uh, how do you expand or reuse your articles as products or for or in your products? I don't know what your process is.
Yeah. Um, so like sometimes, I mean, I've done a lot of products over the last kind of 12 months, and some of them have literally been the best of medium put together. So when
Okay.
so actually, I mean, funny enough, my best selling product is my resource bank, which is a bunch of templates and cheat sheets and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was created accidentally because I had all these resources, templates to accelerate my productivity, and I was using all them. And every now and again, I would post it on Medium in some form. And I realized on Medium, whenever I put like templates or outlines, they all did really well. And then I was suddenly, I remember sitting in the garden and thinking, actually, I wonder whether I could like sell them all, And so I put them all together in a resource bank and I tidied them up a bit. And it's my best selling product probably. And that's really just what I use myself. And in various forms, it's appeared on Medium and in different places and stuff, So sometimes it just gets pulled together. Or I've got a one called Productivity Mastery, and when I realized, which is an email course
Okay.
written, so when I realized actually productivity and writing faster was a big interest, whenever I write about that, it goes really well.
Yeah.
And so then, I think actually I've written probably 30, 40 articles on that. And then I would just look back and work out from looking at my articles, I can work out my own thought processes. And then I just kind of gather that and put it in the form of a course. And I've got like the raw materials because it's whatever I was thinking at the time. And then if it's an email course, that's a bit easier because Medium
Yeah.
is written and then I can just tidy it up and include the best bits. But again, really, what people are getting in that course is what's being tested on Medium, and you're testing all your ideas out and you're sharing what you're learning and you're seeing what connects. And then from
Yeah.
that, you almost get the best of that gets turned into a course. So people can read my 515 articles to find the best productivity tips, or they could save 500 hours and buy it for $50.
Absolutely.
So like I'm
Absolutely.
doing the
Yeah.
work to put it, but it's not just a chat GBT or what's off the top of my head. It's like being road tested by 21,000 followers, And so
Hmm.
doing a favor for people, but I'm not starting writing from scratch when I'm
Yeah,
creating.
this is a very healthy mindset. I wrote a mini book for my paid subscribers here on Substack about the fastest ways to monetize. And yeah, there is this idea, just repackaging or curating and repackaging your best content, and yeah, putting it together in a logical way
Yeah.
is already additional value. Great, great.
Because I
Mm,
mean, because what I do when I write, I am doing the cliche practice in public. I am kind of, this is what
mhm.
I'm learning, this is what I'm trying out, this is what I'm applying, and so I'm kind of thinking out loud as I write, and I'm testing stuff and seeing what I think as well as what readers think, and so not I never create a product from scratch where I'm just thinking, what do I think? The way I test my thinking is in my
Yeah,
writing, in Substack notes. And so,
yeah.
yeah, everything I create of value is going to be downstream of that, as it were.
This is so important because no one has all the time he or she needs to publish content, engage with the audience, create product, everything from scratch. And when you, and obviously you are afraid to launch something that people don't buy, or worse, people hate, and you get hate mail, and so we make things harder for ourselves. And I know this because I did it when I started. But uh, first of all, if you are generous in your content, with your content, sometimes people buy just to say thank you.
Mhm.
And so if you don't sell not anything, people, you don't give these people the opportunity to say thank you in a way. um,
Yeah,
yes, so I think that most people uh, have more to gain if they think think uh, on, if their mindset is how what's the smallest thing I can sell, and how can I sell something I already have in a way. And this is not sleazy if you do it, if you already know that what you teach is helpful. I think everyone can learn from your process. And about this, uh, I have a hard time repeating myself. I really hate when people repeat themselves, but I noticed that online you have to do it. You just have to repeat and repeat and repeat, even when someone has been following you for a year and reading everything and commenting everything. Uh, the first time is not the right time. You always have to say the same thing, say the same thing in different ways or
yeah.
at different times. So how do you deal with this? With the first of all, were you ever afraid of repeating yourself, or and how did you overcome this fear?
Yeah. Well, so my background is learning and development. That's what I've done kind of corporately in the past.
Ah, okay.
And so one of the things I know is most people don't put into practice what you teach them. All right. So most people don't put it into practice. So one of the most important roles for writers is to remind people of stuff. Yeah. Because most people don't need to be taught something new. Actually, they just need to know they need to do what they already know. So
Yeah,
the fundamentals of writing, which is, do deep work on a regular basis, be consistent, serve the readers, edit so that it's very concise, and when you've
yeah,
worked out what readers want, then make it into a product and sell it to them. They're just kind of the basics. And I think what I found as a writer, there'll be people following me for ages. I'll even have people buying products, and then you find out 6 months down the line, they haven't started writing yet, you know,
absolutely. Yeah,
and you're like, what do you mean you're buying? You shouldn't be buying my product if you haven't started writing. And so many people don't put it into practice. And so they need to be reminded. And there's no point trying to get to some fancy advanced truths, because really we just need to do the fundamentals really well. And so I
yeah,
think that reminding people of stuff is, I guess, how I get round that in my head is actually most people are not doing it, because if they were already doing it, they wouldn't be reading me because they would be ahead of me. Do you know what I mean? They would be 5 times
yeah,
bigger than me.
yeah,
I'd be buying their products. They wouldn't be buying my products if they were putting all this stuff into practice. Because it's really hard. It's easy to teach, isn't it? Be consistent, Don't be distracted. Put your phone away and do deep work, and put it on your calendar and all the stuff that we know. But it actually is really hard to put that into practice, because if it wasn't, then everyone would be a top writer. So I think remind
Absolutely.
people to know, to do what they know they should do.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
probably my.
This is the perfect segue. I wanted to take a step back because I started from repurposing because it's so it's such a useful practice and mindset even. But I want to take a step back because the everything is comes from the enormous amount of articles you still publish and you have published in just 2 years. And I think uh, the first um, the first obstacle to publishing a lot is having a lot of ideas and a lot of valuable ideas. And maybe it connects to saying the same things many times and possibly in different ways. So I want to ask you, how do you get your ideas? But since we already touched on repeating yourself, um, how do you make ideas different when you know you are repeating yourself? So two questions in one.
Yeah, I mean, the getting ideas has not been that difficult for me because I have been learning a lot of stuff. So I started with no writing experience. I started with no
Yeah.
business experience. I've worked for churches and charities. I've not worked for businesses. I've never sold anything. I've got no marketing background, never written online. I've got no knowledge of all that stuff. So I've had to learn it. So when I learn it, how do you do a headline? Then I tell people about it. I realized that your writing needs to be concise, so I tell people about that. I learn how to do a landing page. I teach people about that, and so a lot of my writing comes out of my own experience. If I go away and learn something, put it into practice, and then I tell people what I've learned, what I've done. And the way that it's unique a little bit is because it's just my own experience. I'll say, this is how
Okay.
I created this product, and this is the feedback I got on this. This is the mistake. This is what I felt. And a lot of time I'm just kind of teaching my own experience, and I'm always looking for new ideas because I'm very keen to get better. And so I get a new idea, I apply it to my own stuff, and then that feeds into my writing, and I tell people about it in some way. And so that's the way that my writing, that's where I get a lot of my ideas from. And I just, record everything I'm thinking and learning in Evernote probably. And that's,
Okay.
yeah, and that's where it comes from, So the ideas usually go through my own practice and my own experience, and then I just share that with other people with examples typically of how I've
Yeah.
applied it on my
Yeah.
own writing and stuff like that.
And for example, um, some concepts, some like consistency, be consistent, for example. You talk a lot about concepts like this. So, for example, how would you how do you write uh, if you wanted to write a new article about being consistent tomorrow, since you already probably wrote about it a dozen times, how would you frame that article to make it different, unique?
You're asking me to come up with a new idea now that's different from my other 515
Okay,
ideas.
so do you
I
have
mean,
an
I can,
example of an idea you already had
yeah,
that allowed you to write about something you already covered a lot of times, but
yeah.
under a different light?
Yeah. So I remember reading about compounding in Morgan Housel's
Yeah,
Psychology of Money, right?
great
So he's
book.
talking about compounding and how it helps for investment, and he's talking about how our brain can't comprehend the power of compounding. And it's the lots of newspapers together can reach the moon, and there's lots of visual illustrations about compounding. But he's talking about investing, yeah, and money. And then suddenly I'm like, that applies to writing. And so I take what he talked about in terms of investing, and money, and then I apply it to writing to say, actually, the reason it's hard to keep going as a writer is because logically we can't understand the power of compounding because we only understand logic. Yeah. And I guess a lot of my thoughts around consistency was like, how do I motivate myself to keep writing when I'm not getting any results? And I would have lots of mind tricks or mental models that would help me, that would keep me motivated. And so then I would use them to share with other people. And so, yeah, it'd be my own experience of what's motivating me and what like mental attitudes that have helped me through that.
Right. This is a brilliant example. I think I wrote about it in the past. When you become a creator, you have your audience in the back of your mind constantly, and so you start seeing every experience, every lesson learned with the eyes of your audience and
Yeah.
through the eyes of your audience, and so yeah, ideas come faster. Okay, there are a couple of questions. So PLR was asking about stories and writing. He or she, unfortunately, there's no real name, is asking, yeah, how to communicate with each other through stories and writing. How do you use stories in your writing? Because you usually teach, you usually write to teach, and so you have listicles and tutorials. So a bit more technical kind of article, in my opinion. Not that that's what I've been doing all my life. And how do you use stories within your articles?
Yeah, so I mean, so stories would be something I've experimented with a lot. So I'd read like Storyworthy by Matthew Dix and think through like how do you use stories, how do you tell them, what works, what doesn't. And so I've got background as a public presenter, public speaker, where you tell long stories and hook people in. And initially,
Yeah.
I tried to apply the same strategy to writing, and for me, that doesn't work. Telling
Ah,
quite long stories. So
yeah.
I tend to tell quite short stories, like little anecdotes that would just drop in somewhere and would tend to develop like frameworks to keep it really tight. Like a story that might start from, when I started writing, I had no followers. Now I've got 21,000 followers. And this was a key thing that I did to change it or something, so you're telling the format of this is where I was, this is where I am now. And then you kind of
Yeah.
fill in the gap with that. And I mean, you wouldn't normally do that if you were publicly speaking, because you would normally do an intro and a build up. But in online
Yeah.
writing, you've got to kind of keep them hooked.
Yeah.
Or occasionally, I don't do this a lot, although I did do it in an email I sent out today. I might drop them into the story with some sort of intriguing statement. Do you know what I mean? So this conversation with a cab driver changed how I thought
Yeah.
about writing,
Exactly.
and,
Yeah.
and then I would tell the story. So you've got but it would only be one paragraph for me, because then I'm getting into the how to and the teaching, because that's
Yeah.
like my style, etc. But I mean,
Do you
occasionally,
use
I
the?
did sorry, go on.
Sorry. Go on. No, go on. Go on.
Yeah, so I mean that's my staple as well. But every now and again I'll experiment. So probably a week ago I experimented with an article on Medium where I talked through my day and what my day looks like. It was a day when I wasn't in my normal job, so it was basically I wrote in the morning and then I had the afternoon off, and I made lots of money by doing that. But I talked through the different aspects of my day, and that was a long narrative with the that was more like an inspiring of this is what is possible. This is the sort of freedom
Okay.
you can experience when you write. Um, but so that every now and again, I'll just experiment with something and see how it works. But most of my stories will be very small, very tight, with a very tight structure to keep
Yeah.
people attention, just to illustrate something. Because
Do you use the exercise from Storyworthy where you take some time every evening to take note of the most important story from the day?
I've done that in snatches, but I don't tend to do that particularly. I will more if I'm writing about something, then I might just think, have I got a personal story that I could just kind of drop in here that illustrates this? So I would normally do my topics just.
Do you say them when they happen, basically, or you just go through your memory when you have to write?
Most of the time, I'll just go through my memory, unless it's directly related to my niche. So if it's to do with creating products or writing or something, then I might record that if it's directly related to my niche. But at the time, but I might. So I've took up like walking quite a lot, and walking with a notebook and just letting your mind wander. And so sometimes what will happen with that is, if I've just been working on an article in the morning and I go for a walk, then a story about my kids or a story about something that happened might come to mind, and I think actually that could fit in just to illustrate. So I may get that a little bit, but I don't do the Matthew Dix of Homework for Life where I record lots of incidents, particularly.
Okay, thanks. I was distracted by the chat. There are a lot of messages, and thank you, Ashley and Pilar, for your words. And there is a technical question about having two newsletters. Maybe we can leave it for later. We have just about 10 minutes left, and so anyone, if you have a question, just put it in the chat. Just one crucial thing: if you write one article per day and you have a job, you must be very fast because you write long form. Maybe you don't write 2,000 articles, but you don't even write 500 words articles because they just don't work on Medium. So how long do you spend on a single article, a new article?
Probably. It depends a little bit, but maybe like about an hour.
Yeah, it's very fast. Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah, an hour. But sometimes I can take quite a bit of time if I'm thinking through titles and angles and stuff. If I'm thinking, right, what's working right now? How do I kind of rephrase this, etc. But the bare bones can be done in an hour. Although I don't write it all in one go. I'll get like the idea outline on one day, then I'll kind of write and fill in the blanks on another day, and then edit on a last day. But sometimes it can take quite a long time on the headline or maybe the intro as well if I'm thinking about what angle to pitch it. But the writing. The other time it takes longer is if I'm trying to experiment with something. So if I'm experimenting with stories, for example, if I've read Matthew Dix and I'm thinking, right, I'm going to try stories, or if I'm like, I've read something on copywriting and it's like, right, I'm going to try and include that. That will slow me down, but that tends to happen when I've got a bit more headspace.
And how do you use that hour? How long do you spend on your outline, your draft, and your editing?
So typically one article takes 3 sessions. It gets touched on in session, but generally when I write, I go where the energy is. So I'll have 3 or 4 articles on the go, almost like on a little conveyor belt type system. And today I might open up and I've got had an idea for a particular article. So I get the idea down in the outline and maybe just jot some random thoughts in the boxes. And then that's done for today. And then I'll pick up one I wrote yesterday, maybe, and say, edit it. And actually, I'm going to get this one finished today. So I might push to it. And I've got 15, 20 minutes left. And then it might pick up an outline and think, right, I'm just going to bash out the first draft. But I will go where the energy is. So I won't necessarily force it. So sometimes I'll get an idea and an outline and I'll put off writing that article for quite a few days. And then I'll realize, actually, I don't even want to write that article. And so rather than force it, I'll just delete it, because if I force something, it'll take me forever. Whereas if I just go where the energy is, what's exciting me or whatever, I mean, I used to try and bash it out in one session, so I'd try and push through. I've got the outline, I've got to write it, I'm going to edit it. But I mean, I would go for like 2 hours and I'd just run out of energy towards the end. Whereas find if I pick up a different article and do the outline or the editing, it's almost like my energy resets on it a little bit. And
This is very interesting. Okay.
so I tend to go where my energy is, but it's almost like you've got energy buckets for an article, and once that's emptied the day on that article, I can't write any more on it. So then I'll just productive procrastination, I call it, so I'll put that one off in order to get the most out of my energy and the time for the next one. So I'm not procrastinating and I'm scrolling, or not like research, when you pretend to research, but you're not really writing, you're just scrolling. But I would maybe bank to something else.
But
So
how did you develop this kind of self-awareness? Because you notice when you are not excited by an article, or you have no energy and not exhausted your energy for that article or for the day, maybe.
yeah.
But for some people, these are excuses. So today, I don't have, I don't feel it, and I stop writing. Tomorrow, I don't feel it, and I stop writing. So they end up not writing, or not writing enough.
Yes.
So it's not simple or obvious to have this kind of reliable self-awareness. How did you develop it?
Yeah. So like in the beginning, so it used to take me a week to write one article, a 1,000-word article on Medium. It would take me a whole week.
Okay.
When I started. And then I realized to grow, you needed to publish more on Medium. So then I aimed for 3 or 4 a week. And then there was a mindset shift that happened at some point when I was just like, actually, whatever happens, my success is dependent on publishing a lot on Medium. Yeah, I've just got to publish a lot on Medium. And I think once I got over the initial realization that nobody's really reading it, and Eve Arnold her stuff helped me a lot in the early days, that actually you've just got to get it out there. Nothing, and Ali Abdul's stuff on YouTube as well, that you've just got to get some stuff out there. Nothing's going to happen in the first 50 articles. You've just got to get it out there.
Yeah.
And then that idea that actually whatever happens, I've got to publish on Medium. I've got to publish 3 a week, no matter what. I've just got to get them out. And setting my goal of inputs of it doesn't matter if nobody reads it. My goal is to get them out. That's the most important thing. Because if I do that in a year's time, I will be somewhere really special if I can do it. I don't need to worry about the results just now. And so once I got to that, it becomes the norm. So like if I didn't publish so I can get away with not publish on Medium for a day. If I went 2 days without publishing on Medium, I would like have withdrawal symptoms and I'd be shaking in the corner, like if you're into fitness or running or eating vegetables, it becomes the norm. And if you don't do it, you know something's not right inside and you start to like struggle. And so for me, it would feel like my whole writing would collapse if I didn't, because it's the norm. But you're right, in the beginning, the most important thing was to get it out. It didn't matter about being effective and going where your energy was. It was just like, just publish. It doesn't matter if it's rubbish because nobody's reading it. You've just got to get out. Just got to get it out. So in the beginning, I think depending what stage you're at, you need to apply the right piece of advice. And if you're a beginner, productive procrastination is probably not a helpful concept. The most helpful concept is just the only goal is to press publish at the start. That's the only goal. Nobody's reading it, so it doesn't matter that it's not very good.
And if you don't have time for a long article, you just there's at least 3 platforms where you can publish short form text writing, and so there's no excuse. You can press publish every day. There's still, for me, the thing that slows me down the most is editing. I'm not a native speaker, so I sometimes need to fix the use of language. But at least 50% of the time I spend on an article, but probably more is spent on editing. So, how do you cut down editing? And did something change from the beginning to when you started regularly publishing 4 or 5 articles per week?
Yeah. I mean, I can remember the day that my mindset shifted on this. I'd probably be doing, I don't know, maybe like 75 or 100 articles or whatever. So I'd start to get a little bit of traction, but I wanted to get
Okay.
more. And I was reading all the tips by like Nicholas Cole or whoever, and I'd realized there was all these secrets to effective writing. And I was like, all I need to do is take a bit more time to apply all the secrets to this article, and it's going to go fantastically well. What's the point of wasting time on half done articles? So I remember getting all the tips, and I spent extra time applying it all to a particular article, and it did worse than the other one. And so
Okay.
then I was just like, what a waste of time. Do you know what I mean? And then a week later, I'd written a long article, about 7 minutes long, so about 1,400, 1,500 words. And I thought, this is
Mhm.
too long. So I trimmed some out and published it. And the leftovers, I had about 400, 500 words. And the leftovers, I was just like, what am I going to do with this? And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to bang it out as an article. So I added a few more words and I just published it.
Yeah.
And it got boosted on Medium and with my best
Ah.
article, And then I was
Oh
just
my
like,
God.
what is going on here? And
Yeah.
so then I was like, I published this on Substack Notes yesterday, actually. I was just like, actually, you just don't know what's going to go viral or what's going to
Yeah.
resonate. And you can spend all the time working out in your head, but you just don't know. So you test it in the market, not in your mind. You just get it out. And so from that day onwards, I was just like, actually, you just get it out. And sometimes it'll fly and sometimes it won't, but you won't know in advance. And even now, 500 articles later, I can't guarantee it. So that just changed it. So then I just had an editing checklist. I'd go through it, tidy it up, and just send it out. And yeah, been like that ever since, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said there's no. It makes no sense to spend too long on editing. Yeah.
Just,
And
just do enough, and that's it.
Ashley is in the chat says that he is discouraged and stopped writing on Medium. I don't know what she writes about, so maybe it just is a problem with the topic. But in general, to a discouraged writer, what would you say to a discouraged writer who doesn't see um, traction and that thinks, okay, it's not worth it? Uh, how would you um, if you were in that situation, what would you do to get unstuck?
Yeah, so it depends. So if somebody has written less than 50 articles,
Okay.
yeah, if you're medium, then I'd be like, actually, it doesn't matter, just get to 50. Do you mean just keep going
Okay.
to 50? The goal doesn't matter on subscribers, followers, or anything. Your goal is to get 50. Yeah. Then I would say once you become consistent, it's actually then you can start looking at the numbers and working out what's working, what's not. But don't look at the numbers every time you publish. You probably want to look at the numbers once a month. Once a month, sit down,
Okay.
look at all your stuff, see which ones work the best. I mean, if they're all rubbish, but one's done slightly better, work out why, and then you reuse that strategy and
Hmm.
pick one. I mean, you've got to write for at least 12. I mean, you've got to write at least 100 articles before you can get good. You
Yeah.
don't learn writing from articles or watching stuff like this. You've got to and you don't just write 100 articles. You've got to apply a particular technique every month, learn one technique every month for 6 months and embed that. Because to learn one technique takes you a month of writing to embed it in your writing style. Yeah. And so you've got to have 6 months of applying one writing technique every month. And then after that, then you can start to look. But most people have read a few articles, maybe bought a course, written 5 articles, and then they're disappointed. And I think having and this is where Eve Arnold helped me as well, this realistic expectation of, you got to write 50 articles. You got to write for 2 years, she would say, before you can expect
Hmm.
anything. Um,
Yeah.
So it depends where somebody's at, but there's some of the thinking I've had that I've applied to my own writing, really.
Yeah, Ashley wrote that she deleted the articles. I don't think I get the disappointment, but don't. I think one of my first articles I repurposed on Substack was about taking ourselves less seriously, or maybe just putting less. I don't know, emotion maybe in every article. So just remember that, okay, you believe in your article, but it's an article. Write it, publish it, and forget about it, and move to the next one. Maybe if the article gets traction, go back to it and understand what worked. Maybe some detachment helps, I think.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Okay.
So our time's probably done, isn't it?
What?
Our time's probably done. It's been really good fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we went over. Sorry. Yeah, no, you were very generous, and I think people appreciated this. The recording will be published tomorrow, and I hope other people will have the chance to listen and learn from you. Where can people go to? Where's the best place to read about you, get your free and paid resources?
Yeah, I mean, they can just find me on Substack, the Irresistible Writer, and there's a list of my courses or all my free content on there, and they can sign up if they want. And yeah, love to help people a bit more from there.
Okay, so go and subscribe to Derek, and see you on the next interview. Thank you, Derek, again. Goodbye.
Appreciate your time. Thanks, Alberto. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.